You are listening to A Breath of Fresh Career, a podcast that inspires people to explore career change, entrepreneurship, and just getting after it. It is hosted by Justin Kane. He is the founder of Woodbridge Worldwide. Woodbridge is a boutique search firm that builds enterprise software companies. He sits down with people to talk about them, their passions, their process, the lessons that they have learned along the way, and how to make an impact in business and while interviewing.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 2 of A Breath of Fresh Career. I'm Justin Kane. I'm the host. Psyched to be back here in 2021. We got exciting changes going on in this country, and I love the winter. It's the winter here in New England. I came back the first week after a long holiday between Christmas and New Year's, and was just inundated with catch-up work. It was crazy the first week. Second week, I had a little surgery, set me back a little bit, but back in the saddle here, ready to go for A Breath of Fresh Career. I'm super excited. I love doing this. I get to talk to the most interesting people. I'm speaking with a gentleman by the name of Chuck Perl. He's the president of Outfront Inc. This is really cool because if you use a mobile device, and you do, if you use a computer, and you do, if you use a tablet, and you do, Outfront is a stocking distributor for electronic components. These guys go out and they find either obsolete or hard to find parts for the technology sector. So essentially they're an OEM for these hard to find parts. Major brands as clients in contracts. During Chuck's downtime, this guy, you got to hear this story. First, you got to hear the story how he got started. The guy started his entrepreneur life, I think even far beyond his guitar strap business, but went on to be like the largest guitar strap manufacturer in North America. And then you'll hear it. Anyway, long story short, the guy's downtime is spent giving personal tours in Central Park. He is essentially a Central Park historian. He knows everything: benches, who sat on them, trees, light posts. I mean, it's crazy. Mile markers. It's unbelievable. The wealth of knowledge he has about Central Park. Lives right across the street. He's a husband. He's a father. He's a grandfather. His daughter recently took over as the CEO of Outfront. It's a woman-owned organization. Chuck is very proud of that, and I'm sure we'll hear about that as well. But without further ado, let's kick off Season 2. Here's Chuck Perl. Welcome, Chuck Perl, to the show. We're really psyched to have you today. I'm very excited to listen to your stories and to how you got your start. So why don't we just kick this off? Tell the listeners how you got your start as an entrepreneur.
Okay, so just to give you a little bit of my quick background, I'm a Brooklyn-born and bred New Yorker. I've lived in New York City, between Brooklyn, Queens, and Manhattan my whole life. I'm a graduate of NYU Stern, and where I majored in marketing. And one of the things I can just start off with before we talk about getting going as an entrepreneur is when I graduated, I had my degree and I said, okay, world, here I come. And it took me quite a bit of time to find my first job, because everywhere as I went for an interview, they said, well, you seem smart and everything. Come back when you have more experience. So that was my introduction to the world of business there.
Yeah.
And I did have 2 or 3 jobs. And about 6 years later, I got a phone call from a very close friend of mine that we knew each other from elementary school. And what happened was his father had passed away, and his father owned a big music store on 125th Street in Harlem. And he said, I had to go back to take care of some things in the store, and we got in a shipment of bongos and congas. This was back in 1966.
Wow.
And yeah, and he said, and the distributor who sold it to me left a label on the crates showing where the manufacturer was in Mexico. And if you think back to those days, that was the days that the Beatles had just come out. The music business was booming. So somehow we scraped together $1,000 each, and we sent it off in an envelope with a bank check and a purchase order to this company in Mexico, and ordering bongos, congas, maracas, all those kind of things. And a couple of weeks later, I got a phone call from him telling me that the shipment had come in. Let's go try and sell it. So I told my boss at that time that I needed a couple of days off. I went there, filled my car with some of the merchandise, and both he and I went in different directions to call on music stores. And within about 3 or 4 days, we completely sold out all the $2,000 worth of inventory. And the $2,000 became $4,000 there.
Right.
And so in those days, it would be kind of equivalent to something like $18,000 today. So I quit my job. In the same month, I got married, and we started a business going into the music business. We worked out of the basement of his store there. We knocked on doors. We ran around. What we would do would be we would sell first and buy later. Monday to Thursday, we'd both be on the road. We would be selling our music products, strings, straps, anything we could sell. We'd then put together all the orders on Friday, and then I would run around to the wholesalers and distributors in New York City and buy the merchandise that we had already sold. Saturday and Sunday would be spent packing up the goods for UPS to ship out, and then we would start all over again.
Unbelievable.
And that's how we started the business. And one of the things about being an entrepreneur that I always like to tell people, sometimes it's better to be lucky than smart.
True.
And it happened that I was at a wedding. I was invited to a wedding, and sitting at the table with us was a very distinguished gentleman. And usually, I always say, introduce myself and say, what do you, can I get your name and what do you do? And he said to me, I'm Stan Caven. I'm vice president of CBS Records, in charge of new products for Columbia Records.
Wow.
And I thought for a moment, and I said to him, let me ask you something, Stan. How many salespeople do you have selling records? He said, we have over 300 salespeople. We have 14 warehouses. We distribute all over the world. I said to him, nobody is really selling the record stores musical instrument accessories. Would you like us to develop a line for you of musical instrument accessories that your salesman could sell to the same record stores? No one is doing it.
Wow.
And he thought for a minute and he said to me, can you come to my office 9 o'clock tomorrow morning? And this was back in 1968, 1969. And I said to him, absolutely. And in those days, there was no PowerPoint. I had scribbled out some ideas on a yellow pad, came to his office, gave him the idea of putting a turning rack with about 20 different accessories on it under the Columbia brand. And he looked at it, he says, okay. And he called in one of his assistants and he said, give Chuck a purchase order for $25,000 to test market this.
Oh my gosh.
So back in those days, China did not exist. It was really only Japan where you could import from and things like that. And so we put together the purchase order, and I sent it over to Japan. In those days, there was no computer, there was no Wi-Fi, anything like that. And very naive, we didn't even know that we should get a proof of the packaging.
Oh,
I had designed a beautiful gold box with a see-through window. And what happened was we got in the box and was supposedly printed in gold. I didn't know that gold ink flakes comes off. We opened the box. All the gold ink came right off on my shirt. But worst of all, they spelled Columbia wrong.
oh my goodness.
And then that was a disaster. So we had to repackage it. So what we ended up doing was packaging all these items in vinyl bags, not plastic, not poly, but vinyl, so it popped. And we printed new header cards. We repackaged everything. We got it out, and they test marketed it in Boston and Cincinnati. And about 4 weeks later, I get a phone call. He said, well, the test was successful. Come in, and we're going to give you our opening order. So I went to his office. He hands me a purchase order. This is 1969, I think. And my eyes go to the bottom of this. And the total for the opening order in 1969 was $500,000.
Holy Toledo.
So, and we had about $8,000 in the bank. So we needed approximately $300,000 to finance the order. So we needed money. Where do you go for money? To the bank.
Yep, the bank.
And what do the banks say to two young guys with no experience, no collateral or anything? You know
Come
what they
back when
say?
you have some experience.
No. So we went to banks all over New York City. No one would loan us the money. Anyway, I went back to this vice president and I told him, Stan, we can't raise the money. No bank will loan us the money. And he said to me, what's the name of your bank? And I told him at that time it was Manufacturers Hanover, which was the precursor to Chase and Chemical back then.
Okay.
And what's the name of your manager? And I gave him the name. And he got the guy on the phone and he said, introduced himself. He said, this is the vice president of Columbia Records. He called us the boys. I had the boys here. They need to borrow $300,000. And Columbia Records will give you our written guarantee for 50% of what you loan them. But you have to tell me now on this phone call, otherwise I'm going to take them down to Citibank where we have a relationship. I'll arrange the loan there. There's a pause, and then I hear him say, no, we will not guarantee 100%, only 50%. There's a pause, and then the bank says to him, okay, send them over with the guarantee of 50%, and we'll give him the loan.
What a story.
And after he hung up the phone, I said to him, Stan, for them to guarantee the whole loan, that's a few grains of sand to them. He said to me, Chuck, if I guarantee the whole loan, you don't build any credit. Pay him back on time, build a relationship, you'll get all the credit you want. Wow. And that's how the start happened of how we began in the music business.
That's incredible. What a great story. That's somebody trusted you and somebody believed in you guys, which was also great. And they took you under their wing, which was equally impressive. Now you're the president at Outfront Inc. Tell us in your own words about Outfront Inc. and what you guys do, please.
Okay, so let me segue a little bit, speed up from this. So this thing with Columbia Records ended up being a huge account. We were the first ones to bring in stereo headphones for them to go with their phonographs for the record business. We brought in the first radio headphone there. We were bringing these things in by the trailer loads. And it became a really good business. And eventually we branched out into the video business, video accessories. And that became a very good thing. My partner and I built that business there. We had a guitar strap factory where we had 250 people working in a factory that we had ourselves in Lynbrook, New York, in Long Island. And then after 20 years there, I decided to split away from my partner and start something completely different. And I needed a break. And I did. We split up the partnership. He bought me out, and we still remain friends forever. And then I found it out front, and how we got into this business of buying and selling semiconductors, electronic components, is like many other things that I've done in my career. I don't necessarily write a business plan or write things. Things happen. I watch what it is, I grab the opportunity, and then I execute or I make things happen. So about a year after I started this company out front, I got a fax from a company in Japan asking me, somebody that I had met years ago, asking me if I could supply 100,000 Motorola SRAM chips. I didn't even know what an SRAM is. So one of the things that I've learned when you're in business, if you want to find out anything about an industry, find out the names of the publications, the magazines, the things that pertain to that industry, and ask to speak to the editor. They always love to show how much they know. So I found out there was a magazine called Electronic Buyers News, and I found out the editor's name. I called him up, and he said to me, Chuck, there's a worldwide shortage. People in the business can't find these things, but I'll send you a couple of copies of my magazine, which he did. Anyway, I sent a fax back to the guy in Japan saying, sorry, we can't help you with this because there's a worldwide shortage. But because there's a shortage, maybe you have product that you want to sell in the USA, and we'll help sell it for you. And the next day I got a fax back from the guy offering me 100,000 of a Philips DRAM, and it was NXP 12345. It had a part number. I had no idea what it was. He offered to sell these to me at $2. So I had the magazine, and in the back of the magazine, there were two lists, buyers and sellers. There was no internet back then, really. And what happened was I sent out faxes to some people who listed themselves as buyers, offering to sell these 100,000 DRAMs. And all of a sudden, before I sent out the third fax, the phone rang. It was a guy in California. And he said to me, I'll buy them. How much? And I said, because I had no idea. The editor said, $4 on a close margin. So I said, $2.25. And he said, okay, send me your bank information. I'll wire the money. Wow. And I hung up the phone afterwards, and I said to myself, I just made $25,000 in 4 minutes. And this might be a good business to go into. And that's how we got started in it. But then I made a mistake. I didn't know the buyer. I didn't know the seller. So I put the two of them in touch after telling the buyer to pay me the $25,000 commission, which he did. But after that, of course, he had the connection there. But that's how we got started, and that's how we got going in that group there.
So Outfront is I'm reading independent stocking distributor of electronic components, and you guys specialize in hard to find and obsolete parts. That's so cool. Tell us why somebody would want an obsolete part or a hard to find part.
Okay, so what happens is in the semiconductor, the electronic business, these are the parts, made by Broadcom, by Motorola, by Philips, by Fujitsu, all the giants there, and they have giant factories. And also, in order for these giant factories to work properly, you can't just turn a switch on and off. they have to plan, they have to get the raw materials, they have to, produce. And what happens is it becomes a very cyclical business there. So, what will happen every once in a while is that a manufacturer, let's say a manufacturer of automobiles, needs a certain semiconductor or part for it there. And all of a sudden, when he goes to the manufacturer of that chip, that semiconductor, they tell him, yes, we can take your order, but we can't put it in production and you won't have it for 20 weeks. That means that his line stops. So that's where it comes about, where they will go and work with independent distributors who have their own network that will be able to find the parts through other brokers.
I understand. Yeah. Otherwise, using the car manufacturer as an example, they're not producing that vehicle.
That is correct.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So you're the president of Outfront. What's the day in the life? Tell us what the day in the life of the president Outfront Inc. is.
Okay.
Like.
So I can talk to you about post-COVID and pre-COVID.
Let's do it.
So right now, as you can see from the background, I'm working from my home here because my wife and daughter consider me old, and therefore I'm vulnerable, even though I just got my first vaccine shot.
Oh, congrats.
There. So I've been working from home. Interestingly enough, there, and because I'm involved in so many different businesses and projects, I am very busy. But I find I'm more productive at home and actually have more time. Now, why do I have more time? Because when I'm in the office, if the mailman comes, I have to get up from my desk to look and see what's in the mail. If the UPS guy or the FedEx or DHL comes with a delivery, I have to get up and see what's in it. If I hear conversations going on in the main office, somehow I get up and intersperse myself in it. I can't do that,
Procrastination.
And for some reason, it works. I've learned, this is something I've learned. So this has been a little bit of a learning curve for me there. So while I'm in the office, I'll be involved with most of the day-to-day things there, or calling customers, or working on some of my other projects, which I'll tell you about in a little while.
Yeah.
But at home, I actually get a chance at some point to sit and read the New York Times for a half hour. I actually read a print copy.
That's great.
Old-fashioned.
No, absolutely. It's a good way to do it. So we've talked a little bit about how you got your start, a lot about how you got your start. We talked about the day in the life, running the everyday operations at home versus in the office. What's one thing you had known when you began your career that you didn't know?
I would say that the one thing that I would like to have been better at, and I'm still not good at it, is a better understanding of accounting and reading a balance sheet, which I still have difficulty doing. Yeah. I do a lot of things based upon gut. I can tell, I just feel.
Okay.
When something.
You talked about starting your business with no business plan, but you execute and you make things happen. I mean, that's the gut. That's
what I try to do.
Your drive. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay. So balance sheet, get to know the financial side of the business better so that you can dot the I's and cross the T's. What advice would you give somebody wanting to pursue a career similar to yours?
Okay. If someone wants to be an entrepreneur, okay, they've got to be willing to take risk and to take chances. All right.
Yep.
You also have to be of a frame of mind to never give up, but at the same time, you also have to know when to give up and don't look back. I hope that's clear.
Yeah.
The other thing is about opportunities. The name of our first company, when I started the music business, the name of that company is a name that I made up called Ambico, Ambico. And I came with that name because we were trying to figure a name, what would the company be? And I took a dictionary and I was scrolling through the dictionary. And when I came to the prefix ambi, I see that it means many and varied. So I made up the name Ambico. And so, and the reason for that is I believe there are opportunities everywhere. There are opportunities to talk to people, to see things. To be a successful entrepreneur, what is really important is, number one, to put yourself in places where you can see opportunities, recognize the opportunity, but then be able to do something which most people don't: execute, do something about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Being able to spot an opportunity and act and execute on it is the most important thing if you want to be a really true entrepreneur.
I'd argue that, I think that a lot of folks that are entrepreneurs, I think they feel like they can execute well, and I feel like they've got the energy to do it. But I think that what I see in most cases is that they can't spot it, or quite spot it, or they don't put themselves in the position to recognize opportunity. That's one of the things that I think is really difficult, at least for me, a lot of the times, and what I see in other folks as well. Let's just jump around here for a second. Putting yourself in a position to recognize opportunity and talk to people and learn new things. You volunteer your time essentially as a Central Park historian and give tours. Tell us about the tours that you give in Central Park. I mean, I've been on one or two, and they're super extensive. I mean, I joke with people, but I mean, why a bench is there and whose ass is sat in that bench, right. And how long that tree's been there and what type of tree it is, and lampposts and cracks in the sidewalk. Really, cool things, right? So tell us a little bit about that.
So I'll tell you a little bit about Central Park, and I kind of have fallen in love with Central Park. It has a fabulous history there. So I've become, just by studying it and by actually going on tours with some of the official people from the Central Park Conservancy, reading the books, the history of Frederick Olmsted and Calvert Vaux, who designed Central Park there. I have a whole bunch of knowledge in my head. And one of the things that I have found is that no matter where you are in the world, everyone knows Central Park. Everyone, whether it's in the United States or anywhere.
You don't need to say Central Park in New York City. You just say Central Park.
Central Park. Actually, the people that live in New York City refer to it as the park.
Right.
I'm going to the park. And if people ask me about the lake, what's the name of the lake? Do you know what the name of the lake is? The lake.
It's the lake.
It's the lake. It's the park. So one of the things that I've done is if I have friends coming in, I will take them on an official 2-hour tour of the park, giving them history and everything about it. But I've done something else too, especially if I bring along some young people. I show them the importance of networking and how to meet people that are complete strangers, and within 25 seconds be able to engage with them. And I'll share with you my secret.
Sure,
okay?
Please.
Okay, first of all, during the warm weather, I always wear a collared white shirt, which no one else wears when they're walking in Central Park there. And I have a hat because I'm a donor to the Central Park Conservancy. So I have a hat that says Central Park Conservancy, baseball hat.
Yep.
So I look pretty official there. And then I have the ability to walk up to anybody in the park and be able to engage them. And the secret way is I volunteer to do something for them first. Okay. If they seem lost, okay. In fact, when you come to Central Park, there are no signs in Central Park this way to the merry-go-round, this way to the zoo, or things like that. And
the lake, this way to the lake.
And there are no signs. And the reason that's done purposely, Frederick Olmsted didn't want signs. He wanted people to meander, to get lost in the park.
Incredible.
Yeah. So I always carry with me some small maps, which I'm able to, here's a map, and can I help you? I'll show you how to get there. Yeah. The other thing I do is sometimes I'll see people together or in a group, and very often most people are doing this. They have their camera out
doing
here
a selfie
like this,
thing.
doing a selfie. And I go up to them and I address them and I say, I can do it better. Okay.
Yeah.
I never, by the way, in sales and marketing, you never give a question that can be answered with a no. Like I'll never say, would you like me to take your picture?
Right, because they'd say, no, I'm okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
We got it.
But when I go to them and I say, I can do it better, and they look at me and they see my Central Park hat and they see that I'm an older guy that probably can't run as fast as them. They figure I'm not a camera thief.
That you would take the phone, right? You'd take off with the phone.
And I'll take off with the phone there. So then I take a couple of their pictures. And then what I do after I've done that, while I'm still holding their camera, I ask two questions. Where are you from?
Great.
Okay. And the second question I ask, I'm still holding their phone. What do you do?
That's incredible.
Okay.
That's great.
98% of the people answer my first question. And because I've traveled the world, very often I can segue. Someone says to me, I come from Stockholm. Oh, I was in Sweden, such and such, yes, I'm from Barcelona, and I can say my few words of Spanish and tell them when I was over there and things like that. And the second question is, what do you do? It is amazing that I would say 90% of the people will tell me that too. Now, I also carry with me a rubber band full of my business cards, okay? And I will tell you there, Justin, that in the years that I've done this, I have made multiple business connections that have resulted in friendships, that have resulted in invitations to visit them if I come to their city.
Wow.
There.
Incredible.
And also because I'm involved in so many different businesses, I'm able to see if there's something that they could either be a customer or I could buy from them. And it is, there's hardly a city in the world that I can go to now where I couldn't contact someone and say, hey, do you remember I took you on that little tour of Central Park? They all remember it.
Oh, they remember it. That's
so and this can be done anywheres. The key to speaking to total strangers, do something for them first. If you're sitting on an airplane and your seatmate, can I help you put that luggage up there? Would you like to share my newspaper? Offer something to the other person first.
Makes sense.
Then you can start your convo. Where are you from? What do you do? And it's amazing.
You said it yourself, traveled the world, you meet a ton of folks, you've started a bunch of businesses. I like to ask everybody that comes onto a Breath of Fresh Career about influencers in their life. There have to have been, you know, three people that were the most influential to you. Who would they be?
Okay. I would say my mother was definitely one of them. She was a very, very smart woman. And she gave me a lot of independence. My father worked 6 days a week. And she was a homemaker. At the age of 9 years old, I was allowed to go from Brooklyn to Manhattan on the subway myself to go to the Museum of Natural History there. She taught me to think for myself, and she taught me the value of hard work. Another person that was very influential to me is a very good friend of mine from Sweden, who when I had sold my company, I also went to work with him doing mergers and acquisitions all over the world. And one of the things that I learned from him was when you deal with the banks, okay, don't think that they're impervious. Don't think what they say you have to take. You can push back.
Okay.
And the best thing you can sometimes do with a bank when they are not giving you the terms and things that you want, you say to them, well, I have to get back to you because I have another bank that has offered me a better deal. So
they follow you to the door. They're running out to the car. Yeah.
And I would say last but not least is my wife, Carol, who's
Smart
a clinical psychologist and an author. One of the things I tell people, because I do talks at universities all over the world about entrepreneurship. I teach young people how to find a good job in tough times, is surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. And what I did was I married someone.
I was about to say, you certainly did, right?
I married someone smarter than me, and she challenges me all the time.
That's great.
I would say those are three of the top people.
Well, let's a nice segue there. Thank you for throwing that plug in there. Helping people find jobs during challenging times. What are some of the key characteristics that you look for? If you were to hire somebody at Outfront or at Ambico, back in the day, like they haven't changed much, by the way. So, like, what are some of the key characteristics that make people special, make them stand out?
So what I try to look for is somebody that has done some pre-research about my company, that they've made an effort. They're not just there to run through things there. I also look for someone that has already done some research in the industry there. But most important, I love it when someone comes and gives me ideas of what they could do in the future there. It doesn't matter if they're good or not. And it comes back to something, how I got my first job. I had actually had a tough time looking for a job. Everyone wanted experience, etc. And I wanted to do everything on my own. I didn't want help, which was a big mistake because, introductions are a very important thing in finding a job. And so I finally reached out to a great uncle of mine who knew, because they sold to a shoe chain called Miles Shoes, which I don't think exists anymore. They had about 300 family stores all over the United States there. And he made arrangements for me to have an interview with the president of that company. So I had that interview scheduled. And what I did the week before the interview, I went around to all of their stores that I could find. I went out, I looked at the windows, I talked to the customers, I went inside. I actually told the manager that I'm going to be interviewing for a job with your company next week with the president. I gave him the name of the president. And I said, what are a few things you'd like to see done at your company that could be good? And I would write all these ideas down there. And
Undercover boss, essentially.
so what I did was when I went to this interview, the president of this company was a German guy. He was a tough guy. And he sat down, he says, okay, I'm seeing you only because your great uncle asked me to. Why should I give you a job? And I pulled out this list of ideas I had stolen from other people, and some of them were mine. And I handed him this list and I said to him, here are 20 things that I would like to see done if I come to work for your company.
Wow.
Didn't say a word. He looked down this list, never said a word to me, picked up the phone, called his secretary, and he said, get Arthur Gold in here. Mr. Gold came in from the distribution department, and he turned to him and says, Arthur, this is Charles. He's going to start working for us next week, and find a position for him.
Holy cow. That was it.
That was it. And he, and then I was still in the office there, and I said to him, well, that's very good. I do appreciate that. And the salary will be, and he told me $90 a week. And I said to him, I really need 100. And he said, okay. And that's now what I
should ask for 120.
What I did find out later, that of the 20 ideas I presented, 17 of them were not good ideas for the company.
Okay.
17 out of the 20 were not good ideas, but I learned something from that. He didn't care whether they were good ideas or not. Okay. Because I didn't know the company, but he could see that I was thinking, that I was proactively trying to bring surprise.
What a great story.
So that's a little bit of the background there.
That's amazing. What you mentioned earlier, are you working on any other special projects? Any other what's going on right now?
So let me tell you, in addition to this now, my beautiful daughter Lori is now 51% owner of Outfront, our company. So we've become a woman-owned business, minority business. It used to be in the old days, you could just get your wife, your girlfriend, your relative or whatever, and say, okay, you're the head of the company. It doesn't work that way. You're actually audited now. You have to there's a certification process you have to go through, which we did. And of course, one of the dangers now that she's a 51% owner is that she could fire me. I'm hopeful that won't take place. So she's really been taking over the helm of this and working on this, which has given me time to work on some of my other projects. And I'll give you some ideas of some of the other things I'm involved in. One is a wellness healthcare program in China. There.
Wuhan area or?
No, in Shanghai, Beijing, Shenzhen. Anyway, by the way, our company was one of the first companies that when Nixon opened up China in the early 1970s, we were one of the first ones to be in China. So I have a lot of experience in China. And one of Lori's very close friends that she met here in New York was a woman from China who worked for McKinsey at one time. And Lori, my daughter, worked for PW Price Waterhouse in the consulting side, and they had a lot of things in common. And they became very good friends. And Carol and I became the substitute grandparents for this woman's family. Well, they lived in New York. Anyway, very, very, very smart woman, married to an American who was a senior partner at Gottlieb, the big law firm.
Yep.
Anyway, she came to me. I've done several business things with her. I trust her 1,000%. She's very, very smart. And she came to me about 3 years ago and said, I have a concept. We're going to bring wellness healthcare to China, to the corporations in China, which virtually, the annual physical visits to doctors didn't exist.
Wow.
And she said, I'm putting together $3 million to start this. I have $2 million so far. And she explained what she was doing. I loved the concept. And I said to her, you know what, Yen, I'm going to put together a group of people only from my network, and I'm going to give you the other $1 million. But I'm not going to look just for investors. I'm going to put together people that can bring something to the table, and we'll create not just investors, but an advisory board.
Okay.
And I set up a LLC here to buy a certain percentage of that company in China. And I reached out to doctors, to market research people, to finance people, a whole bunch of people in my network. And the deal was they could only put between $25,000 to a maximum of $50,000 into this. And within 1 week, I had the $1 million.
Wow.
Not one person asked me for a business plan. Not one person asked me.
That's good, because you didn't have one.
Besides the point. But the other reason was because I have such extensive experience working in China. I always advise people, buy from China, sell to China. Never, never invest in a Chinese company, because they have a different set of values, multiple sets of books. There's all kinds of things that go on.
Okay.
Don't invest. When my friends learned that I was putting my money into a company in China, I had people that wanted to take the whole $1 million.
Wow.
So anyway, so that's been a very, very interesting thing. The COVID has been a big boost to the business. The goal there will be eventually to take that public, or to, it's grown now where they probably have about 30 people working on this there.
Wow, that's wonderful.
With some of the biggest hospitals in China. The second project that we're working on is a new type of fiber with low voltage power. We have over 10 patents on this. This is going to replace Cat5 cable. It increases the bandwidth. For example, how this will work, let's say that you're a Kmart or a Walmart, and you're a district manager. You walk in and you say to the manager, you see that security camera in the corner over there? I want you to take that camera and move it 25 feet over to the left. And what would normally happen is it would need an electrical outlet. So you have to hire an electrician for $150 an hour to establish that. With our new product, you just score the plaster on the wall, lay in a very thin fiber with power. You don't need any electricity. It's amazing there. So
it's power over landline as well, right?
Yes, yes, and it's going to increase the bandwidth. We've got many patents on this. The first beta site is up and running. We've licensed this, and we're now actually having product built in China right now, which will come out on the market in about 2 months.
Amazing. And of course, because it's fiber, the power doesn't affect the data transfer.
Right. In fact, one of our trademarks is data with power.
Okay.
That's
really cool. By the way, I got to tell you that my father's brother-in-law, so my uncle, my aunt's husband, was one of the first fiber optic guys for Verizon in Massachusetts.
Oh.
So if you ever want to get him on the phone, he's a Marine. He's an interesting man. Holy cow. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, when this is ready, up and running, the beta site is running, I'll have our a chief engineer, inventor, run you through it.
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah. I'll
We'd
tell
be glad to do that. And the last, one of the other projects, which is really an interesting project pertaining to COVID, back in March, when there was a huge shortage of ventilators, I went to our head engineer, who's probably one of the 100 smartest people in the world. And I said to him, let's build a better ventilator. Okay. And what's come out of his mind, and we actually did a fundraising on, what's that site where you raise money?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
GoFundMe.
GoFundMe. Yep.
GoFundMe. Okay. And we actually raised like $16,000, just boom, for buying parts and helping to do this. And he's a guy that sees things that other people don't see. And we already have patents on this. And it's not just an intubator, it's a ventilator bringing oxygen. So just to give you an example, what this can do now, let's say you've got COVID and you're short of breath and you call 911, the ambulance guys come, it's hard to breathe. Instead of taking you to the hospital where there's a big shortage of ICU beds, they take our unit and they put the mask on you. And there's the software that we've developed with a camera and a microphone. You're immediately connected to a pulmonologist who can then adjust the oxygen flow. And most of the time, we prevent you from having to go to the hospital. It can then stay with you so that you can, if there's an emergency there, it'll flash. The pulmonologist can get right on, see your face, see all the signals and everything, either make adjustments or call 911 and then transport you. The ventilator, the final samples are worked on now. We're now bringing it to one of the leading hospitals for testing. And so this is going to be, it's a big game changer.
Oh, yeah.
What he's developed is something that the $50,000 ventilators do now, that we can produce for a lot less.
Yeah.
So there's some interesting things going on there.
This interview's been full of advice, and this is what this is all about. It's about giving back to people who are looking to make a change, looking to interview, learning these steps. I mean, the fact that you spoke about people, doing research and making an effort, and people who give ideas is like that would have been enough, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. If you were in my shoes, what would you have asked yourself that I didn't?
Good question. I think I would have asked me a tough question. And the tough question would be, what were some of the major life challenges you faced in your personal, because if you're an entrepreneur, personal or business challenges are the same. How would you handle them? And I've had, people sometimes say to me, you're a very lucky guy, you're successful, but I've had challenges too there. The partner and one of my best friends that I started the business with, that we kept going for 20 years, that I knew since we were in elementary school, was killed in a plane crash.
Gosh.
I lost a daughter to suicide. I have another close family member that is a survivor of stage 3 breast cancer.
Amazing.
So I've had a lot of challenges. And one of the things that I've learned from these challenges, you don't forget them. But you have to be there for the challenges at the time, and then you have to refocus and you have to stay on a positive highway.
Wow. Wow. That's deep. You spoke about earlier about not looking back, not looking in the rearview mirror, and not to be dark here, but I can remember. So I was very not a challenge at all. Nothing even compares to anything that you're describing, by the way. But I was at my local high school, playing hockey at the hockey team there, and I left that high school and went to boarding school, all boys boarding school, Salisbury School, where I ended up graduating. And I left the high school to go to Salisbury to try to play hockey, et cetera. And I didn't even talk to my coach. And this guy was like a second father to me. I didn't even talk to my high school hockey coach to tell him I was leaving. Me and two other guys just up and left because it was a better opportunity. And, you think about being young in your life and you got the world in your palm, and, you think back like how I would have handled it now. Well, years go by and I hadn't really seen him. And my grandfather passed away, and in the funeral home for the wake, down that aisle comes Coach Gagliardi, this guy that was like a second father to me. And I saw him, and had this very unique walk. He's now passed away as well. Great man. And I jumped up and I kind of hustled over to him, and I gave him a big hug back when we could do that. Can't even really do that right now with COVID. And I said, I want to apologize. This was after college, right? I was a grown man. And I said, Coach, I want to apologize because I never really sat down and talked to you about me leaving and going to Salisbury. And he called me Jesse. Jesse boy was the name that he called me. And he said in this raspy voice that he had, with his head tilted, actually, I think it was this way. He said, Jesse boy, never look back. That's what he said. Never look back. You did the right thing. You did the right thing. Right. And I've taken that. He told me straight up, he said, if you spend your life, if you're driving your car and you spend the time that you're driving looking in the rearview mirror, you're going to crash. He said, that's why the windshield's, 100 times larger than the rearview mirror. You got to look forward. Absolutely. And just like you said about not looking back, and you use the rearview mirror analogy, and you talk about, some of the changes and challenges and not recognizing them, but seeing, past them when the time is right.
Yep.
It's amazing. It's amazing. In closing, and I appreciate this. Has been an amazing interview. I love it. I've learned a lot. I'm excited to take some of these things to my business. How do you want listeners to connect with you? Do you want them to reach out?
Anyone wants to contact me? I'm not on any social media except LinkedIn. I don't pay much attention to that. Best thing is through my email, Chuck Perl, ChuckPerl, no A in Pearl, one word, Chuck Perl at Outfront Inc., or one word, outfrontinc.com. I'll always get back to you, and I'll always, I'm open. And the best thing I can do is when COVID is over, if you contact me and you ever come to New York City, wherever you're coming from, I'll take you on a tour of Central Park.
You want to take them up on that. Trust me, for sure. I'll put a link to your email address in the body of the description for this as well, so people could find you easier. I might even put your LinkedIn profile, but we'll go from there.
So let me just do one last thing, which I'll just give quick bullet points, what I call the keys to success. May I share that?
I'd love that. Please.
Okay. So kind of summing up there, number one, be opportunistic. Don't be afraid to take prudent risk. Watch for opportunities, grab them. Most important, make them happen.
Okay.
Sometimes it's better to be lucky than smart. Think of how you can take advantage of that lucky break. 3 most important things in entrepreneurship: network, Network and network. Build it.
Okay.
Business plans are for bankers, classes, venture investors, lawyers, accountants. Investors bet on people, not plans.
I love it.
Break through the barriers. Break through the barriers. When you want to contact a company, stay away from what I call the no departments. The no departments are legal, finance, human resource, engineering, and purchasing. Those are all the no departments. If you want to break through to someone there, call the yes department. The yes departments are sales and marketing. They always take a call. And then if you need to do something from there, when you finally get to someone in the yes department, ask the name of someone in the purchasing department, get the name of that person in sales, and then say, Jack Schultz suggested I give you a call. That's the open door.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. And that was very valuable. Holy cow, the no departments. I'm going to start using that for sure. That's great. Well, thank you so much. And
my pleasure.
We'll do this again. I'm going to reach out to Lori at some point here and when I have an opening and see if we can't get her on. So I'm going to say that Chuck Perl sent me.
All right. And you can send this to 10,000 of your famous followers.
Okay, we'll do it. Thanks so much. Have a great weekend.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.